What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another video, and thank you for joining me here on this channel. Not off to that bad of a start. Anytime you're just starting a YouTube channel, it starts off slow, but through consistency, you'll get there. Why can't any millennials and Gen Z afford a house? That's like the question of the decade, of like the past 2 decades, isn't it? Why are so many millennials and Gen Z struggling to get homes? And the average age of a first time home buyer now is 38 years old. At one point, not too long ago, a couple decades ago, man, it was, in the early 30s. In the late 80s, it was 29 years old. So, what's changed and what's changed so rapidly? If you have ever spoken to a boomer, or maybe even a Gen X about this, the disconnect, the older someone gets, the more disconnected they are, right? Um, I I don't know why it's so hard for a boomer or a Gen X on the older end of Gen X to understand what's truly going on. um, for some reason, they can't, like, they don't think about inflation. It's weird. They do not think about inflation. They don't think about the cost of housing when they were our age. They don't think about how much money they made versus how much money things cost nowadays. Because when you have to spend your currency, right? When you have to spend your currency to buy things, cost matters. You know, there's a reason why they all say, I was able to pay for college just working a part time job. Yeah, try that today. You won't even pay for a semester. You won't even be able to afford the meal plan and housing at a university. You might make enough money just to afford your books. Like, seriously, books and supplies. Like, they just don't, it doesn't equate to them, and I don't really understand why. And honestly, that's the answer to the question. The cost of everything is higher, like this gentleman talks about in this TikTok right here.
The boomers like to remind us of their 14% interest rates in the 1980s compared to our 7.5 today, and we should stop whining. But the average home was $47,000 in 1980, where today it is $436,000 for the average home. Let's compare that to salary. The average salary in 1980 was $12,000. It is only $56,000 today. So housing went up times 10, but incomes only went up times 4.5. And then if you look at it compared to the average home, it is 4 times the salary for the average home, where today it's 8 times. This person can't even be qualified for this. But if the 1980s person didn't want to deal with the 14%, they had an option called renting. They could actually rent an apartment for $243, which was only 24% of their income. Today, the average rent is $2,000, which is 42% of the average American's income. So if the average American can't afford the average house, they are almost being forced to rent. And if they're forced to rent, they're forced to spend 40% of their income on housing. That is what's putting pressure on Americans today.
Crazy, right? So, what's the solution? Why do we all appear to know, especially the younger generations, why do we all appear to know the problem, but there's been no solutions? Just in the past 4 years, the cost of housing's gone up almost 55% in 4 years. And another phenomenon that I think plays a big role into why a lot of millennials and Gen Z can't afford a home is there's no such thing as a starter home anymore. We already know that a lot of home builders focus on homes that are in the 400,000 plus range, right? And obviously that depends on where you live. And a $400,000 home in the South that today is the starter home is probably like 800,000 in California. So it depends on where you live and cost of living, right? But no one builds starter homes anymore. Like, what is a starter home? Like a 1,000 square foot house, maybe 1,200 square foot, ranch style, 2 bed, 2 bath, 3 bed, 2 bath, nothing crazy, nothing fancy, because you're starting, right? No one builds those anymore. Everyone builds luxury condos, luxury apartments, or, like, once again, 400,000 homes that aren't starter homes. These are like nice homes that, by traditional standards, might be someone's second or third home. They have upgraded features and they have all the fancy craftsman style and farmhouse style and this style and that style. There's no just simple homes on a simple lot, young person getting started, young family getting started, and it's crazy. I have a friend that was looking at a house, and the house was, and I'll see if I could put something on the screen here, just as an example. But the house was $800,000 because what they're looking for, that's entry level. And with today's interest rates above 7%, because you got to remember, when you go to a website and it's showing interest rates as like 6.5 or a high six, that's for someone with perfect credit. Well, we know the average American doesn't have perfect credit, so most likely your interest rate is going to be in the sevens. So with an interest rate of, let's say, 7.4, we're talking about thousands of dollars a month. Who can afford these prices? Are you seeing the price on the screen? This is how much an $800,000 house will cost, right? And then it depends on how much you could put down. Can you only put down 3%? Well, this is the cost. 5%? This is the cost. Are you one of the few that have parents or grandparents that can help you out? Are you one of the few that actually have an inheritance that's helping you out? Are you part of that minority of Americans that actually have stock and other things you could cash out to make that purchase? Because many people don't have that. So how are you going to come up with 20% down? But if you are one of those people, even with 20% down, this is the cost. So the reality is, like the gentleman explained in his TikTok, we need like 4+ times your salary or your take home pay, depending on where you live in the country, just to afford to live. And whoever would have thought it would get to this, you know? Another thing boomers like to say is, well, y'all aren't good with your money. We all heard about the avocado toast thing. We know the, YOLO. The reason so many people doom spend is because they see no hope. A lot of young people see no hope. If, based on the cost of housing today, if you try to save up for a down payment, it's going to take you so long that by the time you save up enough money for the down payment to buy a house today, we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the future. And because of inflation, that amount you saved up is now irrelevant. You need to save up even more now. Like, the goalpost continues to move. And that's the main problem, y'all. The moving goalpost. And then there's so much more nowadays that we have that older generations didn't. You know, like a boomer, when they were our age, they didn't have cell phone bills. They didn't have Wi Fi bills. They didn't have multiple vehicles, so potentially multiple vehicle loans, right? Because the mom could stay at home. A lot of them had one family vehicle. And if they had two, it was more affordable. Vacations were cheaper. Everything was cheaper, and or it didn't exist yet, so they didn't have to pay for it. They weren't spending money on, Amazon and streaming services. Those weren't bills they had. Buy now pay later, back in the day, I want to say they called that layaway, but buy now pay later is really eating a lot of people up right now. Like, eating people up, beating people up, because no one can really afford the things that they want, so they're just buying it now, paying for it later. And before they look up, they have like 4, 5, 6, 7 things that they have on buy now, pay later that's taking their checks every 2 weeks, plus credit cards. I mean, there's so many reasons why millennials and Gen Z can't afford homes nowadays. And while some of it sounds self inflicted, when you think about the fact that some of this debt is not even on wants anymore, there's people using credit cards for needs. There's people using buy now, pay later for needs, diapers, formula. Like, it's real. I think we all know the solution. The reality is, in our capitalistic society, no one's going to do it. If the market crashes, the Fed is going to come save them. The government's going to come save the market. Or the government's going to come save the car companies. The government's going to come save the banks. The government's going to come save these Fortune 500 companies. We've seen it time and time again in our lives. If you're a millennial or Gen Z, we've already seen it in our lives 2 or 3 times over. So you would think in a capitalistic society that the cream rises to the top, right? A business that deserves to live will live. A business that didn't have great business sense and is dying deserves to die. But no, the government just saves them with our tax money. Saves that company, then that company turns around, does stock buybacks, raises their prices, and our tax money, that's the whole reason they're still in business. They just charge us even more and more and more for their services and or products. So why can't millennials and Gen Z afford houses? Inflation, aka the cost of goods and services. There's no starter homes and just pure greed, if we call it what it is. What do you think the solution is? And let me know down below in the comments what's been your experience either trying to buy a home or save up for a home, get a home loan, get pre-approved for a home. What's been your experience? Let me know down in the comments below. And this video right here, YouTube thinks you'll like. I think you'll like it as well. Hopefully you do. Check it out, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.